They called him Gaius. The people, Caligula. But history. A sun king born in a world of shadows. A Roman prince destined to be a god. Power, he found, was simply the divine license to break the world. Rome's golden age was his forge. The fires that tempered him were madness. Before the throne, all men were equal, equally terrified. In his gaze, they saw not a ruler, but the capriciousness of the fates. The empire was a beast. He became its reckless, glorious heart. He was the abyss, demanding that his subjects stare back. The legions marched, not for Rome, but for the pleasure of their god-king. The ancient texts promised divinity. They failed to mention the cost. He built a kingdom not of stone, but of his own volatile desires. Every victory was a ritual. Every meal, a sacrament of self-worship. Holiness was merely a provocation. Innocence, his ultimate temptation. The court became a theater. His reign, a tragedy nobody dared to leave. He sought the sublime. He found only the savage comedy of human power. To wear the purple was to inherit the paranoia of 1,000 years. Every shadow held a dagger. Every smile, a conspirator's lie. The Inquisitor of Heaven was also the architect of his own personal hell. He waited for Jupiter's approval. All he heard was the thunder of his own ego. The true power rested not in the crown, but in the loyalty of the blades.
Feasting was a distraction. His real hunger was for transcendence. He searched for the god in the glass. He found only a frightened boy with a sword.
The veil thinned. He believed he saw the other side. And he liked what he saw.
Worship was mandatory. To withhold devotion was an act of treason.
He poured Rome's wealth into monuments of his own, exquisite ego. While he dreamed of heaven, the machinery of the empire still needed to turn. Only the animals offered an honesty he could trust, and he cherished them.
The elixir of life, or the poison of the soul. The difference was academic. The smoke was the path to the higher plane. The fumes, the breath of the divine. The transition was complete. His flesh was merely a vessel for the true king. To speak to the gods, he had to silence every human voice inside him. His pleasure was to map the full territory of human emotion on others.
Procession of the god on earth. A spectacle of fear, not awe. His innocence was gone. Only the sweet taste of absolute corruption remained. The forbidden fruit tasted best when offered up by the unwilling. He sought to embody the divine. He only managed to sweat like a mortal. Nightly rituals were a pact, his soul for the Empire's obedience.
Beauty was his currency. Its value was determined by his passing obsession. The power to give life, or to steal it, was the only true measure of a king. He bought loyalty with glittering crumbs, knowing the true price was their humanity. The heavens themselves began to reflect the sickness of his soul.
Even the light he cast was impure. Every flame a lie of warmth.
Lust became a performance. Intimacy, a transaction of terror.
Even his instruments of pain were kept pristine. He valued cleanliness.
The walls of the palace absorbed the sound of human agony until they could sing it back.
His crown was a burden he chose to discard, only to demand its immediate return. Life was a masquerade. The props and costumes were meticulously cared for. The world outside ceased to matter. The reality he created was all that counted. His life, a brilliant, frantic flame that was always seconds from extinction.
The vast world was too small for his ambition. He needed to conquer the soul.
He saw beauty only in its vessel. His most dangerous moments were often those of simple, capricious play. He had 1,000 mirrors, but only the fear in others could truly reflect him. He lived in the tension between one decision and the next. Experience taught them silence. Every word was a potential death warrant. He blinded the gods. For now, he was the only one allowed to see. The whispers, once contained, finally grew into the roar of steel. The flame of his reign was a fire that consumed everyone, even those who lit it. The Inquisitor was confused. How could his subjects betray a god? The patterns of beauty were momentary. The patterns of violence were eternal. The theater was closed. The actors fled. Only the stage remained. The hand of the god was human, wet with the final, simple truth of flesh. His legacy was not of monuments, but of broken butte and forgotten names. The storm passed. The river of Roman life simply flowed around the new rock. But the seed of fear was planted. The possibility of the mad god was now history.
They sought to erase him by replacing him. But shadows cannot be carved in stone. The doors to the forbidden chambers were sealed, but the memory lived behind them.
The water washes the blood, but the stories remain indelible. The Inquisitor of heaven and hell was gone. To silence history, they used stone and mortar. To what end? soldier's loyalty was a temporary skin, easily shed, easily forgotten. The silence spoke volumes, the evidence of a terror now only implied. The feasts stopped, but the hunger remained. A hunger for peace.
Beauty is resilient.
The survivors carried the weight. Every step was a battle against memory.
Even the stone faces cried for the sins committed in their silent presence.
The fierce light of his life was reduced to this. A brief, hot memory. The future belongs to the indifferent, those who never knew the fear. The facts were written, but the truth was locked in silence. Even the light source of his history is choked. The vision obscured.
They clutched their lives, but what they grasped was ultimately dust.
The trees stand watch, eternal witnesses to the cyclical madness of Rome.
Ordinary task of building the future begins again. Thread by heavy thread.
The structures built for life outlive the men built for death.
The quiet persistence of life against the grand, failed designs of man. Key to his private chamber. Now only a piece of useless red iron. The ordinary noise of a city trying to drown out the echoes of screaming. Image lingers, simplified and passed down to the new generation.
The cages are empty, but the wild, hungry spirit of absolute power remains.
The treasure is buried, the secret of its true price lost in the earth.
Symbol of empire is weary, drenched in the rain of a new, sober dawn.
The true history is not in the scroll, but in the panicked words of the masses. Praise for purification, but the contamination is in the very stones. The light of simple reason, a small, steadfast beacon against the madness. The house of power sleeps, but it does not forget what it is capable of. Life continues, fed by the crumbs of an old, broken system. The final resting place is cold. The soul of the empire, petrified, beautifully preserved, eternally dead. Justice is now an empty equation, a balance with no weight to measure. All flesh is grass. All power is simply a heavier handful of dust. The road to the capital is always the same. It carries both God and the assassin. The search for meaning begins again. Survivors touch the past, not in worship, but in final recognition.
A quiet offering to the true gods, the ones who did not demand sacrifice.
The line between heaven and hell was not the emperor's decree, but the simple pane of glass. Time continues its work. The slow, relentless rhythm of consequence. The return to sanity is chaotic. A chorus of fragile, human voices. A smile rediscovered. He sought the stars, but he failed to navigate the small space inside his own mind. The true God is silent, cold. His ambition was infinite, but his monument is finite, a footnote in the eternal stone. The Inquisitor is dead, but the question of power, that question lives forever.